P Sports presents And They Walked Away, Part 2.
Hello everyone, I'm Steve Evans, and again I'll be your host as we delve into the extensive archives of Diamond P Sports. We'll have a look at incidents from World of Outlaws Sprint Car Racing, CMC Motocross, and AMA Supercross, ASA Stock Car Racing, and a whole lot more.
Let's pick up the action at the 1990 NHRA Winston Finals in Pomona, California. Now watch the car in the far lane. It's Gary Densham, the school teacher from Bellflower, California. Gary came to the last race of the NHRA season with a beautiful new funny car and promptly turned it into ashes. After the initial explosion, the fire that resulted burned the parachutes away. Gary was not able to trigger the fire bottles, which allowed the fire to grow. Fortunately, he was able to swing the car sideways, rubbing off speed, and with the help of the NHRA Safety Safari, get out quickly. Gary Densham was able to walk away from that inferno with only minor injuries because of the mandated fire wardrobe to protect against such emergencies. The once beautiful Thunderbird body funny car, however, was not so lucky and showed the scars of an intense blaze. Let's see if we can tell what went wrong. It looks like the rear tires might have been just about to break traction, and Gary tried to feather the gas pedal to keep that from happening. Doing this caused the cylinder to fill up with liquid, which can't be compressed, resulting in the engine kicking the rods out and igniting a huge fireball. In his struggle to get the car stopped, Gary was unable to trigger the fire bottles, allowing the fiberglass body to become fully engulfed. Only skillful driving kept the car from rolling or getting into the wall. Gary Densham was able to walk away. It's the biggest drag race of the year, the U.S. Nationals at Indianapolis Raceway Park. In funny car qualifying for the 1990 event, Whit Daysbor was debuting his brand new Permatex funny car. And once again, we found out how hard it is to get a car stopped with ports of blazing oil feeding flames and getting under tires. Diamond P cameraman Jeff Kelty caught this dramatic footage as Daysmore tried frantically to get the car stopped. Like Gary Densham earlier, the body on Whit Daysmore's car was reduced to fiberglass ashes. I talked to Whit about the incident.
Well, the car was shaking pretty bad, and got to, it seemed about half track, and it must have kicked a rod out or something, and had a small fire, and it grew. So it's just one of those things that it happens sometimes, and it's the first one for me. It's a handful, but I'm fine. Got to worry about the car now.
It's hard enough to drive a nitro funny car when everything goes right, but nearly impossible when things go wrong. Well, in 1990, things went very wrong in Dallas, Texas. It was the Texas Motorplex and the NHRA Chief Nationals. The Diamond P cameras were there in round one when Mark Oswald, driving the Candies and Hughes funny car in the far lane, suffered one of the most horrendous explosions in funny car history. After the body had disintegrated and sheer momentum had bounced the car from one guardrail to the other, Mark Oswald was able to stop the car without rolling it, saving further damage to the chassis and injury to himself. Dazed and weak, Mark Oswald walked away. In this first replay, you can see that there's a small puff of smoke from the right side of the engine before the actual explosion. Milliseconds later, a horrendous explosion, nuclear stuff, blows the engine and fiberglass body away. In this second angle from behind, you can easily see how total the destruction of the fiberglass body was. I looked at the damage right after the incident.
As they continue to clean up the Mark Oswald incident, we can show you a classic example of what they mean by an engine hydraulicking. So much fuel in a cylinder, the piston cannot compress it, and it blew the cylinder head completely off of the engine and took a lot of the block with it. That's when the supercharger exploded, and that's where all of the fire came from. But this engine is completely destroyed, much like you set off a nuclear device in it. That's hydraulicking. Mark, considering how little control you had with a blown tire, you did a heck of a job.
I just tried to stay as straight as I could. Steve had just had oil and everything all over the front of the visor, and I really couldn't understand why I hit the guardrail. I thought I held the car pretty straight, but they said it pretty much lifted the car right off the ground.
What were you doing when you put your hand, your glove, way up in the air?
I was trying to see if the body was still on. I was feeling for the roof hatch to see if I was going to have to get out or not. I couldn't tell if the body was still on.
Well, banged up a little bit, but basically you're okay?
Yeah, we'll be back. I'm fine.
Some of the most action-packed racing that we cover here at Diamond P Sports involves the winged World of Outlaws sprint cars. Competing on mostly half-mile dirt tracks, these cars are full-bore excitement.
Memphis, Tennessee is the home of Memphis Motorsports Park, one of the hottest half-mile dirt tracks in the country, visited each year by the men of the World of Outlaws Tour. Now, one of the worst things that can happen in open-wheeled racing is that the cars make contact with each other. The results are unpredictable and often spectacular. At the 1989 event, it was the P feature on Friday night, just after the start, when 21 Steve Beitler and 6 and Tim Monson came together in the back straight. It was Beitler who got the worst of it, but that big wing on top of the car helped cushion the impact. The seriousness of the incident was evident when the race was red flag, bringing all cars to an immediate stop. Steve Beitler was able to walk away, shaken up of course, but was not seriously injured. I talked to him right after the incident.
Steve, you okay?
Yeah, I'm all right, yeah.
Nasty one, though.
Well, I told my dad I'd get on TV one way or the other. I guess this is it. It ain't the way I wanted it, though.
No, I hadn't planned on meeting you quite like this. Do you know what happened? It happened so quickly.
Yeah, somebody in front of me, I think it was Ronnie Daniels, bicycled real hard. When he come down, there just was nowhere to go. We were running real hard in the middle groove, and I ran up over his tire, and the speed on this track, it's not very forgiving. When you start, you get up on two wheels and it comes down, man, it takes off.
Well, you got to be proud of the race car and the men that build it.
Yeah, Ozcar, they're built in Indiana. They do a real good job. I have a lot of faith in their work.
Right. Maybe you should go to the ambulance, huh?
Nah, I'm okay.
Okay, thanks.
Then it was number 88, Mike Ward's turn for a nasty introduction to the back straight. He was all alone when he caught a run in the main racing groove, proving once again that it doesn't take much to send one of these lightweight sprinters into orbit. When any incident like this happens, the first thought of the driver and crew is, can we fix the car and race again tonight? Mike Ward's crew were giving it their best shot when Brock Yates caught up to them.
Mike Ward, are you all right?
Yeah.
What happened?
Caught her rut and it bicycled, and she just went over from there.
Thank God for wings, right?
Yeah, I don't think we hurt too much. We're going to go back out there.
Good, good. Well, we sure hope so. Glad to see you're okay.
Thank you.
Mike Ward, apparently all right. He says we're going to try to get going. I think maybe even this race car is ready to run. They're checking over the front wing, which seemed to have taken a little damage, and the top wing, the big wing, has only got a little bit of a dent. He must have made a nice clear loop. That would be about a 9 if he was a professional diver.
True, but you find out very quickly that a dirt track is a lot harder than water. Then, in the A main of the Friday night show, the situation was this. The field was coming off of turn 2, anticipating a restart. In typical outlaw style, everyone began accelerating on the backstretch. Unfortunately, the number 2 car of Andy Hillenberg became crossed up and got into the 63 Todd Kane car and the 23 of Jack Hewitt. The backstraight came alive with open-wheel mayhem. The orange car of Jack Hewitt was catapulted completely over the wall, while Hillenberg and Kane's cars were damaged beyond repair. Well, at least for further racing in Memphis. As the pieces and parts were methodically untangled, I talked to a dejected Andy Hillenberg.
Andy, you okay?
Yeah, just a little dizzy.
Rough racetrack.
Yeah, it's pretty rough, pretty fast, so kind of easy to get in trouble.
Indeed. Let's let him rest.
First of all, Todd, are you okay?
Oh, yeah. Just shooken up a little bit. I'm all right.
What happened? You and Andy must have gotten into it together, or was he going before you got into
Andy
it?
hit a rut and got sideways, and then like he was already kind of flipping, and then Jack's on the outside, and then I think I hit Andy, and then I hit Jack over the wall. I mean, it just all broke loose. But they're all bunched up there tight,
Sure,
and
sure.
then just something happened. I think I they did a rut there somewhere back there and just kind of got him sideways, and then like Jack was there and I was there. I had nowhere to go. I just drove right into it.
Was were you flat out? I mean, were you coming? You were running hard, huh?
Yeah.
You guys tend to start about on turn 2 here.
Coming out of turn 2. I mean, because all bunched up, I thought they were going, so I went for it. Maybe that's the time I should have kind of relaxed. You relax here. Then
You're
might
with the
relax.
best, yeah. Well, I'm glad you're okay. That's what's most important right now.
Right, it is. Thanks.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
From Memphis, we move further south to Daytona Beach, Florida, and the Daytona International Speedway. We were there for Bike Week 1990. While covering the Harley-Davidson Twin Sports Race on the Daytona Road Course, number 143, Sean Higby got a nasty oscillation going in his front wheel, and this is what happened. Watch the top of your screen. Racers call this a tank slapper. In replay, we can see that Sean Higby got the front wheel bouncing uncontrollably. Anyone who has ever ridden even a bicycle knows how that feels, and grabbing for the brakes makes it even worse. Fortunately, Sean went face first into the grass instead of the track. All the same, ooh, that head is smart. Then, in the same race, it was number 94, Will Roeder, getting off in a hurry and not on the grass. Ugh. If Will can be said to be fortunate, it was that none of the other bikes hit him as he sat collecting his thoughts at the apex of the turn. He had to be hurting after landing on his shoulder with that much force. Let's see if we can tell what happened to Will Roeder. It looks as if the rear wheel broke loose as he accelerated off the turn. Then he overcorrected with the front wheel, causing the bike to catapult him off with unbelievable force. Luckily, the other riders were alert enough to avoid him as they passed. Then, later that season, we followed the AMA Tour to the Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course in Lexington, Ohio. There, we got the act of number 58, Mark Pasteur, in the 750cc Supersport race. I'm not talking about coming off the bike in dramatic style. I'm talking about this. Every racer has some showman in him. Mary Lou Retney's not. I talked to him. Was that just to tell the folks at home you were all right?
Well, basically, it was a sportsmanlike move. I didn't want to throw a helmet down because I was very frustrated. That's one way of releasing frustration.
What got you down to begin with?
Well, the 3 bikes that were in front of me were holding me up, and I was using this race here for testing the bike to prepare for the 600, and I couldn't really push it hard enough to feel what the suspension was doing. And I finally got by the 2 750s and was working on the 600, and I was going to make an exit pass out of the corner. And he slowed down more than I anticipated him to, and I had to grab more brake, and I just wasn't set up to do that.
Well, a great show in more ways than one.
Oh, thank you very much.
Later, in the same 750 Supersport race, it was number 40, Ray Yoder, using essentially the same technique to get loose of the bike, only without the celebratory backflip. Then on a 600 Supersport bike, it was number 121, Doug Carmichael, also perfecting ways to get off of the bike in a hurry. His method? Well, just lay it down and slide off ever so smoothly. The racing leathers that all competitors wear may not look like they offer much protection, but if, like Doug Carmichael, you can slide across pavement and get it to ride again, it's testament enough to their effectiveness. Now, let's answer the question about what happens when there has been oil laid down in a corner. Well, like Doug Carmichael in that last incident, everyone practices laying down the bike and getting off in a hurry. David Doe, Jim Cooser, Robert Galai, James Leslie, and Bob Wright all hit the same patch of oil at the apex of this turn, and all have the same idea after they hit the grass. Get out of the way, because there will be other unsuspecting riders coming. Brock Yates talked to young Mr. Wright.
Well, this is what happens when you get off at the end of a very fast straightaway here in Mid-Ohio. Bob Wright went down. He's okay. Motorcycles beat up a little bit. Bob, how many guys were down by the time you arrived on the scene?
Well, it was close to a half dozen of us went down. Appeared to be some oil on the track, and not much else to be said. Just down the way.
We're glad you're okay.
Thanks a lot.
As I said earlier, every rider thanks his lucky stars for good leathers. They are one of the most effective methods of absorbing friction and keeping a rider from being injured in incidents where he finds himself sliding across the pavement.
In all of motorsports, some of the most impressive thoroughbred race cars are the top fuel dragsters that compete in NHRA Championship drag racing. Back in 1986, a new phenomena occurred when three-time Winston champion Don Garlits became the first in a long line of racers to experience the top fuel blowover.
In this classic footage that we have shown you before from the 1986 Summer Nationals, the first assumption was that Big Daddy's large front end caught the air and flipped the car over. Nobody was completely sure, though, not even Big Daddy himself.
We've had some harrowing experiences, but that was an unusual one.
It was very unusual. It, I knew it was gone. It got so high, and then it wouldn't come back. I backed out of it early, but it didn't make any difference. It was accelerating too hard, and even though the throttle was off, it didn't make any difference. It caught wind underneath it.
At the '89 Winter Nationals, however, there was no doubt as to what happened to Eddie Hill. The front wing came loose and pivoted upward, causing the car to lift the front end and blow over in spectacular fashion.
Now, usually you get some warning of something like that earlier in the run.
Yeah, this deal here seemed like it happened awful fast. And another thing, too, I was not expecting it that far down the track, and it was so unexpected that I hardly ever have to lift at that stage of the racetrack. So it'd be interesting to try to figure out what caused that.
Then in July of 1990, top fuel driver and former funny car champion Don Prudhomme had his own experience with the blowover. This was the third car within 7 months that this tank had destroyed.
To race a whole career, 25 years, almost incident-free in 1 year, it's incredible.
Yeah, I know. It just started to come up on me there, and it was, picked him up a little bit and set him down, and then it really came up. I don't quite understand it right at the moment.
Well, if you stay between the walls, that's one thing, but when it went over the rail, that's when you frightened us, and I'm sure yourself as well.
Yeah, I didn't know where I was at, obviously. I mean, I thought, oh, no, I grabbed the brake and tried to stop it and everything, but it was just too late. It just went over center, and it was over with.
Join your family.
In looking at this replay, we're able to discover a new culprit in the incident involving Don Prudhomme's car. Immediately after the start of the race, the large rear wing began to lever the front end of the car up. As track speed increased, the levering action became even more pronounced, and the front end just got enough air under it to take the car all the way. And as Don said, once the car has enough momentum to go over center, there is nothing that the driver can do except hold on to the ride. And hold on for the ride is just what top fuel pilot Russ Collins did at the 1991 Winter Nationals. Collins, in the far lane, found out the exact meaning of the word helpless in this qualifying run. As always, the safety Satori was right there, and Russ Collins was uninjured. In replay, we see that Russ Collins' rear wing did just what it was supposed to do, only too much of it. In applying down pressure to the rear tires, the wing levered the front end up just as we saw in the Prudhomme incident. And once the front end was up, the front wings acted as lift producers, and over the car went before Russ could possibly react. It could be said that Russ Collins was very fortunate in this incident. As the car corkscrewed through the air, it was pure chance that it happened to land on its wheels, slightly cushioning the impact and possibly saving Collins from injury. The car was heavily damaged, but Russ Collins was okay.
That was a ride, wasn't it?
You all right?
I didn't embarrass you, did I, Steve?
Not at all. You were spectacular, though.
All right, that 2 wheels, but when there's 2 on the front, it's supposed to be in the ground. It's kind of tough.
You know, a blowover like this, every driver thinks about it when he leaves his starting line. There's been so many of them lately.
Yeah, I really never thought about it. I never worried about this car doing it. And I always thought, you know, watching Ormsby and Hill and the rest of them, I thought, I'll stop it. But trust me, there is no way to stop this guy. And as fast as I think I am, boy, there's no way. It is instant. It's instant.
Russ Collins echoing the sentiments of every driver who has experienced the Top Fuel blowover. And believe me, a driver will do anything to avoid the experience again. Can this car be repaired? Probably so. In fact, the car we saw Eddie Hill destroy a little bit earlier is making 4-second passes to this very day. Our annual visit to Naples, Florida, and the Swamp Buggy Championships in 1990 produced some interesting results. First, Leonard Cheshire and his classic buggy, That's the One, had won innumerable titles as King of the Swamp. But when we showed up for the 1990 running of the Swamp Classic, That's the One was hurt, and eventually, so was Leonard. The sight of the old girl, wheels high in the air, was more embarrassing than anything to the proud Leonard Cheshire.
Well, the good Leonard Chester trying to analyze what caused the upset. Leonard, you're all right, right?
Oh, yeah. Duncan.
You know what? It was a little out of control even before it finally went over. I mean, you were having problems early on.
Trying to adjust the steer. I didn't know what it was. I ain't never did that. And I was trying to get it ready because I got a free ride to get it right for the next one. Man, they just got worse.
Indeed, it did. The only damage appears to be to the rear wing of the buggy, though. Pretty durable old girl.
Well, something in the steering mechanism of that durable old girl is going to need some major repairs before Leonard Chester will pilot her to another Swamp Buggy Championship. You can be sure that Leonard never wants another Swamp Duncan like that again. Now, speaking of dunking, newly crowned Swamp King David Sims did the customary honors for Swamp Queen Carrie Ann Moore. She walked away, of course, with a good cleaning. Next, we move to the West Coast in Carlsbad Raceway for the CMC Golden State Nationals. Riding motocross is one of the most dangerous occupations a young man can undertake. Just ask Cody Auclair, who was not having a particularly good day in the 125cc moto. Neither was number 20, Jeremy McGrath, falling in the 250cc class. Luckily, he was uninjured and got back up, losing only a couple of positions. But the most dangerous time for riders is when two bikes come together in the heat of competition, as happened here in a 500cc moto. It was 2H Dan Berg and 15 Tim McClintock going down hard. But they walked away to race again, but still, they had to be hurt.
When you know you're going to go down, you're over the edge. Is there anything you can do physically? I mean, you curl up or do anything to try to prevent injury?
Well, it happens so quickly that, you know, you're pretty much in the position to protect yourself. You know, you're back off the bike, and it just happens so quick that you never really, you know, I think sideways. I was on the ground, and that was it. You know, I just felt the bike on top of me, and, you know, nothing to do. Right?
Part of Grand motocross there.
Happens quick, man.
That's a good press.
Thank you.
During Bike Week at Daytona in 1990, a supercross track was carved out of the infield of the Speedway, and that was enough to get the action started. Jean-Michel Bale found out how easy it is to lose control of the bike on the washboard surface of the track. But a little spill did not seem to dampen his will to get back into the fray. Then it was number 2, Mike LaRocco, getting the front wheel hook and going over in the 250cc Moto number 2. He too was undaunted, give it a kick. Then in Moto number 3, it was number 28, Kurt McMillan, finding out personally just how tricky the track could be. He went down hard, but like the others, got right back after it. Now watch this, as Moto number 3 leader Jeff Matasevich blasts past. 106 Shane catches a run and flips hard. Matasevich, seeing that incident, was probably saying to himself, thank God that wasn't me. We've seen, though, that this Daytona Supercross track is very tough and requires total concentration. And even that sometimes is not enough. In order to lead these motos, a rider needs a little luck. And right about this point, Jeff Matasevich's luck was about to run out. In this first replay, 106 Shane Drew has stuffed the bike's front wheel and is catapulted off, flips in the air, and lands hard. Then it's the leader, number 20, Jeff Matasevich, who rode past the earlier incident, doing almost the same thing. He gets out of sync with the bike's balance. He knows right away that he's going over. Now watch the turn worker in the lower left of your screen. Ouch. Then it was number 13, Ricky Johnson, taking a hard tumble in the 250cc main moto. Even after taking a spill like that, he was ready to keep riding. He is that tough. As we look again, Johnson did not get the front wheel of the bike high enough coming off of the jump. This resulted in an off-balance situation as he had to negotiate the next small jump. Then, still vainly trying to recover, the front end was planted. And he went over, and went over hard. The 18 events that comprised the 1989 NHRA season were some of the most exciting ever. Let's start out at the Southern Nationals in Atlanta. Frank Sanchez was in the near lane against Butch Leal in pro-stop qualifying when he found himself way out of shape. And not only flipped his car over, but forced Butch Leal into the wall, seriously damaging that car. Then, at the Cajun Nationals at Baton Rouge, it was a day that R.C. Sherman in the near lane will never forget. In this replay, we can see just how hard R.C. Sherman hit the retaining wall. Once contact is made, the front-mounted fuel tank explodes in a spectacular fireball. Now, top alcohol bully car driver Grady Bryant knew that National Trail Raceway was one of the shortest tracks on the NHRA circuit. So on round one, when the parachute failed to deploy and the brakes did not get the job done, Grady knew he was going into the sand pit. And go in he did. Grady Bryant did everything by the book when confronted with this situation, and the car should have stopped cleanly. But the front end caught and dug in, causing the car to flip while still moving at a pretty high rate of speed. Grady Bryant walked away, but the car needed some extensive front end work. Then in top fuel qualifying at the Springs, Joe Amato experienced a massive explosion right off the starting line. This incident obviously did not make for a happy day for the Amato team. Joe Amato was also involved in an incident later in the season during qualifying at the California Nationals. Up against Dennis Forcell, Amato witnessed one of the greatest driving jobs of all time, as Forcell popped up lower at half track, cut down a rear tire, and sent the car into a slide that almost took out Amato's car. Forcell got the car stopped with minimal damage, a tribute to his quick reaction. And once again, the White Knights of the Safety Safari were right on the scene.
And Dennis, an incredible job of driving to keep away from Amato. You missed him by inches.
Yeah, well, it was fortunate. We were just able to keep it away from him because it sure wanted to keep going over that way.
It appears that the explosion blew the tire off.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. The blower came over the top of my head, and then it fell alongside, and the tire ran over it.
Tremendous job.
Thank you.
In this replay, you can see just how close Dennis Wurzel came to hitting Amato's car. Just about a foot, I'd say. Gary Ormsby didn't know it at the time, but he was about to experience the wildest 2 weeks in his racing career. Things started here at the California Nationals when Gary lost a rear wing in round 2, virtually destroying the car that he had hoped to take to his first ever Winston Championship. Gary emerged unscathed, but his team was dealt a hard blow, having to replace a race car in a moment's notice. More about Gary Ormsby in a moment, because at funny car qualifying, Gary Ritter in the near lane suffered one of the biggest fires in what was already a very spectacular weekend at the California Nationals. Gary hydraulicked the engine, kicked the rods out, and lit up every last ounce of oil in the crankcase. As we have sometimes seen in other funny car fires, Ritter was unable to trigger the fire bottles, and before long, the fiberglass body was fully involved. The Safety Safari was immediately on the scene as Gary Ritter struggled to free himself from the inferno. Watch now as Ritter gets out of the car. All he wanted was a breath of fresh air.
It's hard not to panic. The only thing that went through my head was, don't panic, just hold your breath, because I couldn't breathe. And if I did breathe, it was that smoke.
It was a long, nervous moment. The hatch came open, but you didn't come out.
I was trying to get the seatbelt off me. I was hung up on the shoulder, and I was about to panic. I was running out of air because I didn't get a chance to take a deep breath of air before that stuff got on me. And I came out after I got loose, and the first thing I did was raise the visor and get me a gulp of air, and then I rolled off the top, and then I felt the guardrail, and I rolled over the guardrail and just lay on the ground. I was trying to get some air.
We're glad to see you're okay.
Oh, I was glad everybody was there. I mean, to get me. They helped out a lot.
Gary Ritter.
Now back to Gary Ormsby. The North Star Nationals in Brainerd, Minnesota. Round 1, a new car, and this. For the second time in 2 weeks, Gary Ormsby had completely destroyed a top fuel race car. This time with a devastating wheel stand. Gary Ormsby himself was completely uninjured in both incidents, but crew chief Lee Beard could not believe the team's absolutely rotten luck. A car that they had owned for 2 weeks lay on the track bent and broken. And oh, by the way, Gary Ormsby and team did win the 1989 Winston Top Fuel title, a tribute to a great team. Also at the North Stars, Jim White's luck was about to change for the worse. Driving Roland Leon's Hawaiian, White kicked the rods out, starting a roaring blaze underneath the car. He managed to drive the car to a safe stop in the middle of the track by sliding it one way and then the other. Also, he managed to hit the fire bottles. Witness all of the gray smoke.
You okay, Jim?
Yes, Steve, I'm fine. Thanks.
You did a lot in your own cause there by getting the fire bottles activated and getting it stopped.
Yeah, that's, this is not my first day out here, and I know that there's a lot of things that we're responsible to do in the cars. A lot of people think that the drivers are doing less and less. When you have a problem, you have to use your head, and I appreciate the experience I have, and I thank the good Lord for giving me the sense to do the things I'm supposed to do, get the fire put out as quick as I can, get it stopped, get the hatch open, come out that roof, and they were right there to help me. Again, we can't say so much for the safety people. They're right there, and I really appreciate their help.
Jim White is okay.
But all that car owner Roland Leon could see is cold, hard cash going up in smoke. Just 2 weeks later, big troubles again. This time in round 1 of the prestigious U.S. Nationals. car apparently got some liquid under the tires, causing it to veer wildly, finally hitting the wall. Jim White was okay, but the car was taking quite a beating, and it wasn't over yet. Meanwhile, in Pro Stock Round 1 at the Chief Nationals, it was Bruce Allen apparently on a perfectly normal winning run against Gary Brown when he lost control. As you see, Gary Brown was lucky to escape involvement in this incident. Fortunately, Bruce Allen was uninjured after his car took a really hard shot against the wall. In replay, we can see that as the chute popped, it pulled Bruce's car just enough to the left to send him almost head-on into the guard wall. Not only that, he misses Gary Brown's car by inches coming and going. Bruce Allen was okay after that incident, but with obvious new respect for what can happen in a split second. Speaking of split second, that's all it took to give Mike Dunn one of the greatest surprises of his career in funny car qualifying. I'll bet Mike thought twice before again stepping on the gas pedal. And just when you thought the Jim White troubles might have been over, takes it again at the Bull Nationals in round 2. All Jim can do is pull it over to the side and watch as his opponent takes a single into the semifinals. Gary Ormsby came to the 1989 Winston Finals to take the Winston crown from Joe Amato. But before the job was done, there were some tense moments in qualifying. Blower explosions like this one were not confidence builders in a quest for the championship. It all worked out, though, and Gary wore the big number 1 in 1990. The greatest sprint car race of the year is unquestionably the Knoxville Nationals, held in Knoxville, Iowa. In the C feature on Saturday, it was 83 Rod Henderson who lost big in this turn 1 crash as 3 other cars piled into it after he hit the infamous wall in turn 1. Then, same night, D feature, turn 1 claimed another victim. It was the 14R car of Randy Rosenboom. In the B feature on Thursday, it was Cliff Woodward in the white number 12 car getting the worst of it. After he was nerfed into the wall, 56 Danny Smith and 77 Dirk Van Heater plowed into it. Cliff Woodward definitely took a couple of hard shots in this scary incident. As soon as he came to, Cliff Woodward did indeed walk away. Then in Friday's mystery race, it was our old friend from Memphis, number 21, Steve Beitler, who got involved in this tangle on the backstretch with 23S Jeff Gordon, 21K Steve Kent, and 17 Ronnie Daniels. Beitler in the blue and red car on the left of your screen was an incidental victim, but his night was over just the same. In this replay, it's kind of hard to tell just how the incident got started. But the 23S car of Jeff Gordon was flipping, along with the 21K car of Steve Kent, when Beitler, now at the center of your screen, comes in and tags Steve Kent's upside-down car. Try as he might to avoid the fray, he was involved. Such are the fortunes of open-wheel sprint car racing. A racer might not be anywhere near the start of an incident, but come out heavily damaged before it's all over.
Steve, I wish we could quit meeting under these circumstances, but it seems to be our fate. You okay? You were limping a bit.
Yeah, when that guy, whoever it was tipping over in front of me, nowhere to go, and I hit him real hard and just a sudden stop and jammed my knee in the steering box.
The damage to the car, the front end, it's pretty extensive.
Yeah, we'll have to get her back to the